A Mighty Wind, The Annals of History, by Lord Blackwater. Chapter 21. The Queef Smoke Mongolian. Barnaby awoke. He was in some translucent world. The place felt familiar. From what he could tell, the place he had woken up in resembled a cabin, but it was made entirely out of mists.
"This is where your dad raised you after I left. He decided to stay back after the Rishimi had migrated north. I believe his friend Fartballs took it over after he had passed,"
a voice said from right next to him. Barnaby turned and looked. What he saw was one of the most beautiful Rishimi he'd ever met. She had long, blonde hair and reminded Barnaby a little of himself. But this Rishimi was not made of mist like the rest of the room. This person appeared to have transformed into flesh and blood.
"My name is Vigella. I am your mother, Barnaby,"
Vigella said tensely. Barnaby didn't know what to say. His heart was full of hatred and anger, but in this moment he couldn't help but feel some love for the woman sitting next to him. Vigella continued talking.
"I'm sorry I wasn't there for you and your father, Barnaby, but you have to understand that there wasn't any other choice. The Rishimi were losing their power and influence in this land, and I had to get it back. I had to lead our people." "But you sacrificed me and father in the process,"
Barnaby said, feeling as if the love he had felt had completely left him. That wasn't what he had hoped to hear from his mother after all these years.
"And sacrifices continue to be needed, Barnaby. If the Rishimi are to return to glory, we need to start new. I've already taken care of the Rishimi who were living in the Boob Range, and now all that is left is you."
Barnaby sat for a moment, lost in thought. People who could have been his family or friends. People who would have understood him, known the proper care routine for a thick patch of ass hair, all gone. He hadn't even known they'd been there, and now they were gone. And now she wanted to kill her own son. All in the name of power?
"You see, Barnaby, if we are to rejuvenate at the tomb of Arnola like our ancestors did, we must first cease to exist. The Rishimi will always be a part of Cumbria because we are born anew no matter what disaster strikes us,"
Vigella continued.
"This is our chance to do it right, to make ourselves the strongest people we can be." "You turbo bitch swamp cow! You took our people! You took any chance we had at rebuilding our culture!"
Barnaby sat for a moment, staring at his mother, panting in anger.
"Prepare to taste a little of my homemade Queeferonian cheese!" Barnaby screamed. "Foolish boy! Shartner could not provide me with the power of the mighty Queef, but I had endless years in the void to practice my own queefing techniques,"
replied Vigella. A queef-off began. Barnaby started with a beaver bomb, a queef known for its distinct, woody flavor. The queef deals a blow with 2 vagina dentata bites, then leaves a poisonous gas behind that shocks the nervous system. It stunned Vigella, who wasn't expecting such ferocity in the first queef. She countered with a cooter pooter. Not only does this queef cover the victim in your quintessential fish oil smell, but it leaves behind a trail of shart matter. When breathed in, the shart matter can attack the brain, causing the victim to become delusional. Barnaby, too, was not prepared for this. Last he'd heard, the cooter pooter had been outlawed in the Poon Squeak Convention. This was going to get messy. Barnaby hit back with a twisting furback turtle. Vigella laid down a nasty eel skinner which almost took Stephen off of the shaft. This was followed by a sausage wallet zephyr, a tuna whistle, a Norwegian easy bake, and finally a singing Susan paired with some butter sputter. In all, they'd broken about 30 Cumbria laws and agreements. But as they say, what happens in a queef fight stays in a queef fight. Barnaby had taken several queefs to the ribs, and he was certain he'd broken 2. Vigella, on the other hand, had lost an ear and had a 3rd-degree burn on her left leg. Barnaby couldn't believe what had taken place, not just the unbelievable queef techniques that were on display, but the fact that he was fighting his mother. He thought back to all the times as a boy he'd imagined what she would be like. This wasn't what he'd had in mind. Corfart spoke little of her, and Barnaby was starting to understand why. Despite this, he had to try one last time to save this relationship.
Couldn't we end this? Try to start something different. Something where we can be a family again,
Barnaby asked, wincing at the pain in his ribs.
You have a granddaughter now, a new Rishimi to lead in our traditions.
Vigela didn't respond. Instead, she reached down to her minky foof and let out a silky queef. A small sticky web came out into Vigela's hand. She looked up at Barnaby and smiled. Vigela threw the vag web at Barnaby, hitting him in the face. As Barnaby wiped the web away, he knew what had to be done now. He had to unleash the Mongolian Queef burger, a stanky blizzard mixed in between a dirty hair bear and a kitty cough. It was the holiest of holies when it came to queefing. The technique had once been used to slaughter an entire tribe of kelpies living just outside the fertility forest. The queef blast it had produced blew the skin right off the kelpies. Since then, the queef has been banned in all 4 realms. Barnaby's vagina quivered at the thought of attempting such a heinous queef.
Don't fear, Begina. Remember, we do this together, just like you said,
Stephen explained, trying to comfort Begina.
But I'm not sure my labias will be able to handle it. They'll split at the seams,
cried Begina, with extra moisture in her voice.
I won't leave you, Begina. Once you start moving into the Mongolian Queef burger, I'll juice your lips and keep them from splitting.
But you'll be destroyed in the blast, Stephen.
I've been inside much worse situations, Begina. There is nothing I can't handle, Stephen said with the utmost confidence.
Oh, you're so brave, Stephen. I'm ready for your juice,
begged Begina. Before Vigela could spin another vag web, Barnaby had begun the queef. The dirty hair bear came first.
Brap, surt, slurap,
Liromp,
goobart, square, hurap, feet, peemorp, peeler, seaward, Next came the stanky blizzard. Bort, bort. Rounded out by the kitty cough. Meow. 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 As the final queef of the combination was completed, a swirl of queef smoke rose around the both of them. It slowly formed together, and in a matter of moments it took the shape of a Mongolian warrior on top of a black horse. It stood about 8 feet tall. The queef smoke Mongolian had a beard that stretched down just lower than the belly of his steed. He wore a warm winter garb and a hat with a sharp point on top that Phelan would have loved to stick a few places. He had a sword in his hand, and his horse had eyes that burned red. The Mongolian rode towards Vigela.
Damn you, Vigela! You destroyed my shitty wall!
The Mongolian cried as he rode straight through her, dissipating on the other side of her body. Begina panted, having done the impossible. Vigela laid on the ground, defeated.
My son,
she whispered.
Such power. You have achieved what I never could. Use it to show Cumbria what we Rishimi can do. Show them the might of the Rishimi.
Barnaby kneeled by his mother's body, tears filling his eyes. He laid his hand on her cheek, and then ran his fingers through her hair, leaving behind bits of the vag web that were still stuck to his fingers.
I will, Mother,
Barnaby began.
But I won't be the one to do it, and it won't be done with power or might. People will know the greatness of our people, but it will be through Trinity, And it will be through love. She will be the leader the Rashimi never had, and the leader you never could have been.
They looked at each other. So much had been lost in all the years, and yet there was nothing left to say. But what could Barnaby say after queefing his own mother to death?
That's Chinatown, bitch,
Was all Barnaby could think to say. He kissed her on the forehead as her body returned to the mist and began floating away. Barnaby breathed a sigh of relief, inhaling some of his mother's mist. He closed his eyes and fell backward.